Welcome back to Green is Good. This is the Go Green edition of Green is Good, and we're so excited to have with us today Mark Rossolo. He's the Director of Public Affairs of UL Environment. Welcome to Green is Good, Mark.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
You know, Mark, we're in beautiful downtown Seattle today at the Go Green conference. Talk a little bit about why you're here and why this is important to showcase what you're doing at UL Environment.
Sure. Well, we're here because we support green activities in general. We operate globally, so we've got offices in China, we've got offices in Europe, and then clearly we've got offices in North America. And we really support the use and application of green building practices, green purchasing, green electronics. We've got some hybrid vehicles here. All of these things UL works behind the scenes to help test, certify, and really provide the trust that these products, these activities are delivering on the green kind of promises that they make. And that's really what our role is to ensure that when somebody says that either this green purchasing practice, this green building, this green product will get you an environmental benefit, we're there to try to make sure that actually happens.
You're the Public Affairs Director there. Before we get talking about all the great work you do there, share your journey a little bit. Where did you get interested in green along the way, and how did you get to this position to start with?
Sure. Well, I've got a little bit of a unique background from most of the people who are involved in sustainability. Mine comes from the policy side. So I worked, one of my first kind of real jobs was working for the Oregon State Legislature, just as a legislative aide. And in that job, working in the Oregon State Legislature, you can't help but get involved in green issues. Oregon's a very green state, and there's a lot of sustainability-related things that come up throughout the legislative cycle. One of our big issues, for example, is urban growth boundary, which tends to really get, is a very political and a very policy-related issue, but at its core, it's designed to ensure there are plenty of green spaces, plenty of parks, that sort of thing, and that our growth is being responsibly managed. So from there, I really started to get into sustainability. I moved on and eventually started working for a very small public affairs firm, which also did some nonprofit management. And in that role, I helped run a green building nonprofit where we tried to drive green building practices in the U.S. And we did that quite successfully. And then from there, I moved on to a couple other positions and eventually ended up with UL.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Elko, Nevada, a little mining town in northeastern Nevada.
Were your parents or was your family atmosphere or community, was it green at all? Was that some of the, or not, none of the, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would call Elko the greenest place. I don't even think we have recycling still, but we try. My parents are school teachers. My dad teaches high school and my mom teaches elementary school. And so, yeah, we were always as engaged as we possibly could be in a rural Nevada town. Now, things are getting better, and there are people there that are trying hard, but there's still a long ways to go there and here, really everywhere. But it wasn't a tent pole for me growing up, just based on gold mining was our big thing. UL's
out of Georgia, but you live yourself now in Portland, which is a very green and sustainable community, huh?
It is, and actually, so UL itself is out of Chicago, Illinois, and then our UL Environment, which is the business I work for, is out of Georgia, and then I live in Portland, which we like to think we're one of the greenest cities, if not the greenest in the world. We've got a lot of things, like our unique mix of public transportation is pretty revolutionary. We've got everything from light rail to buses to trains. We've got incredible bike paths and entire bike boulevards now. We're a very walkable city. We've got, when you move into a Portland City apartment or home, you get a compost unit to help you compost, taking care of your food scraps and your waste. So yeah, Portland has done a lot, and I'm really proud to be from there because they've done a lot of great things.
Now we're going to talk about a little bit about UL Environment. Can you share, what UL Environment exactly does, and then interrelate it with some of the manufacturers that you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a step back, UL as a company was founded over a century ago to provide safety and protect human health. At the time, it was really founded when electricity was just coming into usage, and it came around about the time when people were starting to get nervous about this newfangled technology, and oh boy, if I'm sitting in a room with the light bulb on, is it going to burn the room down? And so our company got started by helping develop test procedures that would in fact ensure safety within those buildings, so that insurance companies could actually develop policies. Fast forward a century now, we no longer worry when we're sitting in the room that these lights that we're here, our cell phones when we plug in, we don't worry that all of a sudden a fire is going to break out.
Right.
And a lot of that is because of the testing and the protocols and the standards that we've put in place to ensure that we're identifying products that could potentially malfunction, and we're getting the products that perform into the marketplace. Now we've got a new generation of safety, and that new generation of safety is looking at things like volatile organic compounds that are in the air, chemicals, what kind of chemicals are going into a product, what kind of chemicals could, my baby potentially be exposed to if they put something in their mouth. Is my water safe to drink? Where does my food come from? When I put on this jacket, where did it come from? Did the factory it was built in, did the workers have adequate working conditions? Are they taken care of in a way? These are now the expanded definitions of safety. And so when UL as a company, when we looked at kind of where the market of safety was moving, one of the big areas you identify is sustainability and is green. And now people are saying, and it's not just enough for this to be safe from a fire perspective, but this product truly has to be safe from are the chemicals in it not harming the indoor air of the building? For example, if I'm sitting in here, am I going to be exposed to potentially asthma-inducing conditions? If I'm eating something, am I potentially putting something bad in my body besides, just the fat and
right.
that cholesterol? And so what we do is we do a lot of certifications. We develop standards, and what the goal is, as I kind of mentioned in the beginning, we're trying to ensure that if somebody says, okay, this product is certified for low chemical emissions,
right,
that it's actually been tested and it actually has low chemical emissions. If somebody is going in and saying, okay, this cell phone is green, this is a sustainable cell phone, that there is a standard behind that, we've certified to it so people can say it's green because of X, Y, and Z. And so what we're trying to do is reduce the clutter around what is and what isn't green, and give people really the confidence of knowing that if I'm taking this for this green attribute, it is what it says it is. It's going to perform like it says it's going to perform.
So it's not linear anymore. UL has basically become an ecosystem of certifications around all sorts of different products and services.
Absolutely, yeah. We think of ourselves as the mark of trust. And so that's really what UL seeks to provide, is trust and credibility, that if there's that mark on there, then whatever that mark represents, you can have trust that that product is going to have that performance metric. So whether that is, it's fire safe and it's been tested for fire safety, or whether that product has, had a VOC emissions testing, for example, or a green, a more multi-attribute green certification, and a lot of things in between. We do a lot of things around life cycle assessment, which is kind of looking at the cradle to grave aspect of a product, so everything from raw material extraction to disposal.
Got it. So what are some of the challenges if you're a manufacturer that is approaching you for certification around the issues of sustainability that you just mentioned, which are much broader now than they were 100 years ago when the company was founded, which was much more linear. Let's create a product and get it certified so it doesn't burn the place down. How now challenging is it for a manufacturer to have something certified in the sustainability arena?
Well, challenging is an interesting kind of way to phrase it, because there's a number of different things that can make it challenging.
Yeah.
So one thing that could make it challenging is if a manufacturer comes and says, we think our product's green because of these attributes.
Right.
And then if we go through a rigorous testing process, sometimes we'll say, well, actually, it's not. We need to change these things. And so then oftentimes the challenge is you have to go into your either manufacturing process and oftentimes into your supply chain and fix something in your supply chain to actually make it perform like you want it to perform. And so that can be one incredible challenge, is figuring out where your issues may be and how to fix them. And we see this with a lot of companies where they genuinely want to do the right thing. They really do. They come to you and they say, look, we realize that this is the future. You mentioned the millennials flocking. We know millennials are making purchasing decisions based on sustainability and green. And just wait until they've moved into later in life when they actually have buying power. Now that's going to be a big shift that companies see. And so, they want to do the right thing, but when you find something and you have to get into your complex supply chain, that can be really difficult. So that's one challenge. Another challenge is focusing on what the environmental attribute is that is most important to you and your key constituent or your consumers. And that's another area that it's not challenging, but it can be confusing, because what's important for, say, young mothers from a sustainability or a green related is not the same as a millennial. You know, if you asked a young mother what's the most important attribute that a product must have, she's going to say safety. It keeps my baby safe. I don't have to worry about, you know, if he or she accidentally puts that toy in their mouth, that something harmful is going to come off, or if the little bunny's sleeping in the bed with them at night, there's not these chemicals emitting, right?
Right.
That's what. But you ask a millennial. So we're talking about San Francisco. If you asked a young person in San Francisco, what's the biggest challenge in the sustainability? Water. They'll say water all day long because they're in the midst of a huge drought.
Right.
The governor of California just came out with a 25% water restriction.
That's right.
So you're going to have a big water thing. Now, if you go to somebody a little bit older, they may say energy, because energy forever. And then you've got climate change and all of these other factors.
So it's knowing your client that you're marketing the product to in terms of finding their hotspot and what matters to them.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Understanding what is important. And really this gets to the other challenge, which is making this economically feasible. Wow. And that's one of the key challenges as we see is in the past we've almost seen this fight between environmental groups
right.
and businesses or corporations. This
right.
almost natural just, you're going to say one thing, I'm going to say another. And we've got to get to a point where we're all working together as
right.
one. And we can't treat a company saying, well, this has to be profitable for me as a bad thing.
Right.
It has to be profitable.
Right,
you know,
right.
If long term, if a company's doing all the right things but losing money, well, they're going to go out of business, and at the end of the day, we've done nothing to fix the problem. So we have to focus on, okay, targeting your constituents, what's most important. Eventually, do we want to do everything? Absolutely we do.
Right.
But we know from experience that that's not the best
realistic.
way. That's not realistic right now. So knowing what you're trying to do, marketing and being very specific about what it is you've done, having that credible mark behind it so that you can point to and say, look, you're a young mother, chemical emissions are important to you, this was UL Green Guard certified for low emissions, you know, drawing those lines, and then hopefully so you can see an increased sales so that your bottom line is lifted up, so that then you can go to your board or your CEO or whoever and say, hey, look, when we got this certification, this happened, let's go do a water footprint now. Let's continue. Let's work on waste or something like that.
And for our audience that just joined us, we've got Mark Rossolo. He's the Public Affairs Director for UL Environment. To find all what the great work that UL Environment's doing, please go to www.ul.com. ul.com. Mark, so really it's first of all, as you describe it so well, it's an integrated relationship between you and the manufacturers that you work with. Is a give and take. You're constantly giving them feedback. They're constantly trying to come back and, in theory, improve their products so they can meet your certification standards. And then once they hit certain standards and certifications, then they want to continue the journey because they see then economic benefit for being green and being sustainable and go into other certifying opportunities that you offer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It has to be a partnership. This whole thing has to be a partnership. And another thing that we do, in addition to just the certifications, is we actually help with the messaging in the marketplace. So we offer training. So we go out and do a lot of education for architects and designers to help them understand, okay, what do these certifications mean? How can they help me if I'm building a building? We do a lot of work with purchasers. So, for example, I'm on the board of directors for the Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council, which is a group that was formed, it's got a very long name, but SPLC was formed to increase green purchasing practices among institutional buyers. And when you think about the huge footprint that an institutional buyer, so somebody who buys, let's say, for a college, somebody who buys for a city, a county, a state, somebody who buys for the federal government, somebody who buys for a large corporation.
Right.
You know, just thinking about the millions of dollars at their fingertips of consumable goods that they buy every day, whether it's chairs, paper, carpeting, vehicles, gas.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
they're the people on the front end of the supply chain.
They're the front lines, and
wow.
And so they're the ones with the
so you do training for them on sourcing.
We do absolutely, and we try to be a partner of them. So it's, you know, with our customers who are the manufacturers who come in, you know, it's let's work together to get your product certified. We've got standards and we've got a very rigorous certification process, and you know, you'll have to go through that. But ideally, once we get that, then let's help you take your message to the marketplace.
So someone can get certified, they can earn a certificate from you as being certified, a certified UL buyer or something like that?
No, so we don't certify buyers.
Okay.
We don't certify buyers. What we do is we go to the buyers and we just say, hey, look, you've got a purchasing policy that says this.
Right.
If you add this language in, it will help you buy better products. It will help you ensure
you just offer the training, but you're not actually offering them some sort of certification.
Exactly. We don't do buyer level certification.
Right.
What we're trying to do is get them them to understand the differences in a certified product with a certified green claim based on a credible standard or assessment process or whatever, to just somebody who's coming in and saying, hey, this is green because I say it's green. And that's a problem we've seen now since I've been involved in the sustainability movement. It's been one of the biggest problems we've seen is unsubstantiated claims. People just saying, this is green because I say it's green, or we do this internal process, so that makes it green. But in reality, we find that oftentimes that's not the case. Whether they're intentionally misleading or not is one thing, but getting purchasers to understand that difference is a key tenet of what we try to do.
So, but once something's certified, do they have to keep coming back to you to have it recertified, or is there a decertification process if someone changes their practices? You find out along the way?
Sure.
Okay.
So yes, there are certainly recertification processes. It's going to depend on the standard that the certification is built off of. Typical recertifications are going to be anywhere from 1 to 3 years. So you'd have to get your product recertified, let's say every year.
Okay.
And for some standards.
Okay.
Now, if you fundamentally change your product within, so let's say there's a 3-year recertification process, but you do a fundamental shift, then that automatically triggers a new certification process. So if you change your product, then you have to get recertified, because if you think about it, so one of our major certifications I mentioned earlier is called UL GreenGuard, which is simply is a VOC emissions certification program. So we can take everything from a full table and chairs to a small piece of rug or carpet, paint, anything that would inherently emit VOCs. We put them in a chamber and we test the chemicals that come off of it.
Right.
So now that certification happens yearly to get a GreenGuard certification. Now, if you get your certification, then 4 months later, you come up with a new, innovative way to design your product, but you have to change, let's say, the adhesives that go into your piece of furniture. Well, then you would have to come in and get that product retested, because when you change a product substantively like that, it could change its profile of the VOCs that emit. And so now you could be in a scenario where somebody could be saying, hey, this is certified for low emissions, but in reality it might be pretty high emissions because they've changed something along the way. But all of that is going to be defined, the parameters is all defined in the standard that the certification is based off of.
And then when someone gets certified UL, then your logo is what you get to put on it, right?
That's right.
So this UL logo, which we all grew up with.
That's right.
And this is what it means.
That's right. Most people are very familiar with our logo, but don't actually know it.
That's right.
The average U.S. household, I believe, the last study I saw that we did, has about 80 to 85 UL certified products in the house today. So everybody watching this or listening to this, you're inherently familiar with us. Just some people don't know. Unless you're in the building industry or the architect and design industry or the manufacturing industries, you don't tend to know, but you do realize, oh yeah, I've seen that little UL in the circle. You just didn't know what it meant.
Our electronic products, most of them have ULs on them also?
Well, so from a traditional business of UL, absolutely. Pretty much all of them in the U.S. do, because they've gone through some sort of fire, electrical, shock testing and certification program.
Right.
What we don't have, so when you do see, for clarity's sake, when you do see a logo on a product, that is indicating more of the traditional fire, shock, safety testing.
Okay.
The UL logo, you would not see a UL environment logo for sustainability on a product. You'd see it on the packaging or the marketing materials, and it would be very clearly marked that it's an environment label about it, because it'll say UL environment with the standard that it's based off of.
Gotcha.
Because we have to be careful that people don't get confused about what this UL certification means versus what this UL certification means, so there's no confusion in the marketplace, because we're trying to make things more simple, not more confusing.
Great. And Mark, your job is to continue to message us and get the word out on what you do.
That's right.
And that's why you're here speaking today at the Go Green conference here in Seattle?
That's right. Yep. Speaking a little bit later today on best practices in sustainable purchasing. So.
Are you speaking alone, or you have a panel today?
I'm actually moderating a panel with a woman from King County, which is going to be fantastic, and then a gentleman from the waste recycling group here.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And so we have about a minute and a half or so left. What are the what's the future hold for UL? What's the what are some of the goals that you're looking to accomplish in the future?
Sure. Well, our goals are quite ambitious. I mean, what we ultimately want to do is become for the sustainability movement what we were and are and continue to be for the fire, shock, and casualty testing.
Gotcha.
So when you think of UL today, most people think of, oh yeah, I get that tested so that it's safe and it gets a UL stamp so that people know that it's not going to burn up or something along those lines.
Right.
They now have that trust because UL is behind the scenes doing the work. From a sustainability perspective, we have that same ambition. We're hoping in 100 years from now, when people see, oh, this chair has a UL environment certification to it, they'll say, oh, good, it's low chemical emitting, maybe it's gone through a multi-attribute certification process like level, maybe it, there's a lot of different things that it could mean, but that really is the big ambition, and getting into the supply chain is really what we're hoping for.
So to become the Good Housekeeping seal in the sustainability world, seal of approval and sustainability.
Somewhat, yeah, somewhat. I mean, essentially what we're trying to do is provide the credibility and trust that
awesome.
Makes it easier for people to purchase green products.
That's really great.
That's the simplest way to put it.
Well, we hope so. We hope you come back and share more of the journey with us.
Absolutely,
as you continue to evolve your brand. And for our audience members out there, to learn more about what Mark's doing with his colleagues at UL Environment, go to www.ul.com. Mark, you are an inspiring sustainability superstar and truly living proof that green is good. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.